Join me now here on Sports Talk are members of the 1969 Fort Dodge Dodgers State Championship team. I've got Dave Vaughn, Bruce Edmundson, and Vic Gordon. And boy, what a collection of guys we have, and a lot of interesting things regarding this team. First team All-State catcher, Vic Gordon. Vic, how you doing?
I'm good, thank you. Good to chat.
Okay, we got fourth team All-State selection, third baseman, Bruce Edmundson. Bruce, how you doing?
I'm doing great, thank you.
And Dave Vaughn was the starting shortstop. He was also my former teacher a long time ago. Dave, how you doing?
Great.
Well, 1969, fellas. Man, it's a long, long time ago. Before we talk about the season as a whole, I just want to talk about the evolution of the game. Vic Gordon, you were a catcher back in 1969. I could turn on a Major League Baseball game right now, and you see some of these catchers and the equipment we have. Talk about the equipment difference that you see in a catcher on TV today in 2025 compared to what kind of equipment you were wearing in 1969 behind the plate.
Well, I don't know if I'm going to be very good at this because I've never been an equipment guy. I paid no attention to what equipment I wore back then. And didn't seem like we needed it, but we wore it, but there's nothing fancy about it, nothing fashionable about it. Today, all the catchers are trying to have the fanciest and most cool kind of protection on, so you can't even tell it's protection. And it seems like it probably is a lot more than we had. It looks fatter and tougher. And I didn't pay much attention to the equipment. I can't remember what the equipment was that I wore. First time when I was 9 years old, I went to my first baseball practice as a little league kid, and the coach threw a catcher's mitt at me and said, "Get behind the plate," and I never left. That's the only position I ever played at. But never paid much attention to any of that.
These days, the catcher's got almost everything to protect him. I'm thinking back in 1969, you probably had a face mask, a chest protector, maybe some knee pads, and that'd probably be about it, right?
That's about it, yeah. And I never got hurt, so it didn't bother me.
Dave Vaughn, I'll go to you. You were not a pitcher, you were a shortstop, but I'll ask you about pitching in 1969 compared to 2025. I recently did an interview with the 1989 Dodgers, and I found a box score. A pitcher for Fort Dodge named Matt Swanstrom threw 110 pitches in the championship game. In 2025, that's absolutely crazy to ask a kid to throw 110 pitches. What was it like in 1969, Dave, for a pitcher?
It seemed like everybody we faced had a hard-throwing pitcher. It didn't matter what team they were, they had hard throwers. And I'm talking, it was one classification back then. All the schools were one class. It didn't matter if you played, which today would be like a 1A school or a large 5A school. Everybody had hard-throwing guys, and they all seemed like they threw complete games. So it was a lot of good hard throwers back then.
Bruce Edmundson, you were a fourth-team All-State selection. Talk about what the bats were like in 1969 compared to the way they are in 2025. Balls jump off these bats in 2025. I mean, you had some home run hitters back in that time. What were the bats like in 1969?
And, of course, Vic Gordon was our number one home run hitter. We used wooden bats, you know. Of course, now a lot of high school, I don't follow everything as closely as I used to, but high school, college, they're all using the aluminum bats, right? I guess the majors are still using the wooden bats, but we broke a lot of bats, you know, because you'd hit the ball anywhere off and the wooden bat would break. But boy, if you hit that sweet spot, that was sweet. So I don't think I played softball with aluminum bats, but you know, I like that sound we had back in 69, especially when Vic would hit it, or Dave Vaughn. I call him Mr. Double. He hit double after double in our championship run. So, but I don't know. I used a real thick-handled wooden bat. I hit leadoff, and I even choked up a little bit. I was just trying to hit line drives and, you know, get on base. But we had a bunch of good hitters on our team and a lot of clutch hitting. I mean, you mentioned one game that we should have lost, and somehow God had us pull it out. I give God the glory for all of this, really. But sorry, that's a little beyond the bats.
Back to Vic Gordon here, Vic. Ed McNeil was your coach. Funny, I played in the late 80s JV, and Ed McNeil was my coach. And kind of I mentioned it was always Jose screw around, all these little words. And, you know, I'm running to first base. Jaden, get rid of the piano off your back and all this kind of stuff. But I'll ask you, Vic, what was it like playing for Ed McNeil back in 1969?
Boy. Chokes me up even to think of Ed McNeil. A great man, a great coach.
Yes.
And he knew we had a possibility of being good. And Bruce, I would agree that by God's grace, I got very close to Coach McNeil. And he was such an important figure in my life. And after all this was over, he told me that he had never been as hard on any player as he was on me.
Wow.
He really thought we could do something. He really blasted it home with us. But he was a man of character, a man who knew baseball. I'm not going to use any names, but there were some well-known baseball coaches in town in Fort Dodge. And I, one time, was talking with Bill Clagg, who was the manager of the Demons at that time. And some of us played on the Demons before we went to the Dodgers, a Babe Ruth team that was pretty good in Fort Dodge. And I was going on and on about a couple of these coaches in town, how good they were. First time I ever heard Ed McNeil's name was Bill Clagg looked at me and he said, listen, Ed McNeil has forgot more about baseball than any of those guys know. He learned so much because he went to the Dodgers training camps in Vero Beach, Florida, and he would take a note after all day of playing baseball. Then he would take a notebook and go. Branch Rickey had these classes on how to coach the infield, how to coach the outfield, how to coach catching, how to coach pitching, all this stuff. And he would fill these notebooks with stuff from Branch Rickey and some of the great baseball teachers of those days. He just had a ton of wisdom as well as a ton of character. And I think 69 is basically a result of him and his extension of his teaching and his example as to how to play baseball.
Dave Vaughn, your memories of Ed McNeil.
I was fortunate enough I was a player for him, and then I ended up coaching with him.
Wow, yeah.
And I remember back when I first started playing, other teams used to laugh at us because our hair could not stick out of our hats. We'd have real close. And we had to, I always tell my grandkids and my kids, I said, it's funny, but the first time I went to take the field, he called me back into the locker room at the other end of Dodger Stadium and said, hey, you're not taking a field like that. And I looked at my uniform because I thought, okay, I got my belt on. Everything's good. My hair's cut. He goes, your shoes are dirty. I go, well, yeah, I practice in them. He goes, well, go polish them. I go, I don't have any polish. So he gave me shoe polish. So I had to go polish my shoes before I could take the field for a game. And then when I started coaching with him, the kids would say, wow, he's so strict. I said, guys, he's loosened up.
Yeah.
I go, we were real regimented in what you did. You did everything. I said, there was not a word said on the infield by him on where to throw a ball. You knew the precise routine and you had to go through with it. And that's the way it was. And we just accepted it. And other teams couldn't believe we were like that. But
Bruce Edmundson, your thoughts on Ed McNeil?
Just a wonderful guy. I mean, just a man of character, like Vic said, a good Christian man. He was just a no-nonsense coach. You know, he was one of those guys that you couldn't fool around. And, I mean, we had a lot of fun. But, boy, he wouldn't allow any foolishness on his team. And I love that because that had us play our best baseball. And, you know, when I first came up as a sophomore, I was really afraid of Coach McNeil. He put a lot of fear in my heart. And I didn't want any confrontation with him. But that was really good for me. I just played the way he coached us to play. And I think that's what happened to the whole team. And eventually in the tournament, all that paid off, you know.
Yeah.
The way we took infield, you know, we took infield like the pro teams took. Like Dave said, he wanted us to look professional, like we look as good as we could look, you know, and it all worked. It was great.
Again, I've got first-team All-Stater catcher Vic Gordon. I've got fourth-team All-State selection third baseman Bruce Edmundson and shortstop Dave Vaughn from the 1969 Fort Dodge Dodgers state championship team. All right, fellas, I'm going to read the roster that you guys had in 1969. Tim Sweeney, Steve Arnold, Vic Gordon, Dave Markley, Bruce Edmundson, Jim Porter, Greg Harder, Coach Ed McNeil, Andy Wiles, Brian Spohr, Tony Salvatore, Tom Walters, John Davidson, Dave Vaughn, Jim Ruge, Ron Lynch, Mike Cooker, Sam Bocci, along with Dave Tuttle and assistant coach Marty Patterson. That was the team, the 1969 Dodgers. Normally the lineup was 3 seniors, 3 juniors, and 3 sophomores in that lineup. All right, you start off the season, fellas, 7-0. You beat Ames twice, Carroll Kemper, West Waterloo, Boone, Peyton, Sheridan. Vic Gordon, did you think starting off 7-0 was something that could realistically happen that year?
Probably did. I didn't even remember we went 7-0. So that's I'm not sure how big that was to us in our thinking, but I kind of am surprised we won 7 in a row. But we did from the beginning. There's a few signs of it, but I think we felt from the beginning that we had a special team, and we were hoping to do something special.
Dave Vaughn, you win 7 games in a row, and then you get swept in a doubleheader by Mason City. You come back, you beat Marshalltown in a 2-1 game, and then you lose 3 more to Marshalltown, Carroll Kemper, and East Waterloo. You've now lost 5 of your last 6 games. Dave, do you remember kind of the middle of the year falling into that rut where you dropped 5 of 6?
Yeah, when we went to Waterloo and got beat, we came home, and I don't know if Eddie and Vic remember it, but Coach just said, if you guys want to play Jose, screw around and just have fun, we'll have fun. He said that on the way home. But next day at practice, he said, guys, I can't coach like that. You're not going to play like that. We're going to stay here until we do it right. And we knew that, okay, we worked like crazy to just get better.
After that loss to East Waterloo, which was a 5-1 loss, Bruce Edmundson, you then went on to win 6 in a row. You beat Jefferson, Storm Lake, Boone in a doubleheader, Peyton, Sheridan, and then Cedar Falls. You ended up losing your regular season finale to Cedar Falls in game 2 of a doubleheader. Bruce, any memory of winning maybe your last, 6 games and then losing that game to Cedar Falls before the postseason?
Well, again, like Dave said, Coach McNeil, we were coming home on that after we'd lost another game. And he said, okay, if you guys just want to fool around, we'll do that. So he says, every position is wide open now. Everybody has to earn their job again. And, we're going to go forward with a whole new attitude. And then we won like 6 games in a row. We lost, like you said, our last regular season game. And then we won like 8 in a row in the tournament and the state championship. So he was just great.
I think the key game was that loss to East Waterloo.
Yeah.
Because when we were,
right.
Another thing, he said all this stuff about you can play Jose screw around if you want and all that. But I don't know how it got to him. But as we were riding home, we communicated to him that if we win the state tournament, we want to take the bus and shag the drag. And he laughed at us, which was surprising because he didn't laugh too much, and we thought he might really get upset with us. But we said, if we win the state tournament, can we take the bus down Central Avenue? I suppose they don't do it the way they used to. Everybody was on the drag in those days. He said we could, but that tells me a couple of things. One, we were still thinking about winning the state tournament. We said, if we win the state tournament, can we do this? And he said, yeah, exactly. And that night after we won the tournament, we went downtown Fort Dodge and we, with the bus, shagged the drag. And that's one of the big memories of the season for me.
Again, I'm joined here on Sports Talk by first-team All-State catcher Vic Gordon, fourth-team All-State selection third baseman Bruce Edmundson, and then shortstop Dave Vaughn. They're from the 1969 state champion Fort Dodge Dodgers baseball team. Dave Vaughn, you guys finished your regular season 14-6, and what a difference, what 56 years make, because there's one class, there's not 4 classes, there's one class, and you have sectionals, you have district, and you have state. Your sectional round, you beat Pocahontas 17-0. You beat Rockwell City 6-1. And now things get interesting. You beat Manson 3-2. By 1 run, you survived. And then what I find most interesting, you beat Fonda in 10 innings 9-4. This game not at all indicative of the score, as you actually trailed 1-0 in the top of the 7th in the sectional title game with 2 outs. Dave Vaughn, Tony Salvatore hits a 2-run triple. You catch them at 1. You force extra innings. You're that close to being eliminated. Dave, do you remember any part of that game at all?
Absolutely. Here's the thing we always laughed about, and we made fun. Ed was real tough on giving us base hits. He was a believer if they touched the ball, it was an error. Our batting average, other than Vic and Eddie, we didn't have a lot of real great batting averages. All these teams we faced, their batting averages, I think Fonda didn't have a player hitting under like 380. They were hitting 500, 600. We're going, how can these teams have such great batting averages? And we'd send Tom or Tim out there to pitch, and we knew what we were going to get. We knew we had 2 good ones throwing for us. So we were confident going into every game with our pitchers we had and our defense and our hitting. We felt confident all the time.
You guys were tied at 1-1 going into extra innings. You get a 3-run homer, Bruce, by Mike Cooker in the top of the 10th inning that kind of blew that game open. Do you remember that home run?
I sure do. Mike Cooker, he was our right fielder. He was a junior. And boy, he hammered that ball. And boy, he had the sweetest swing, left-handed, and he jacked it right over the right field fence. And pretty much the game was over. But if I could just say, when Tony Salvatore hit that triple, it was kind of like a miracle. You know, anything else other than that, and we lose the game. And he jacks one off the right field. He was our number 8 hitter. He was only a sophomore. I don't think he had a real good average, but he had a lot of clutch hits there in the tournament, I remember. But, you know, yeah, we were in the dugout. We're down to our final out. You know, it's kind of like our season's over. Our dreams are over. And Tony Salvatore jacks one off the right field fence, ties it up 1-1, and we go into extra innings. Mike Cooker hits this amazing home run, and off we go into the next tournament game. It was just amazing.
The Dodgers are alive and kicking after outlasting Fonda 9-4 in 10 innings. It was 1-1 going into the 8th, so a game changed in the last 2 innings, but the Dodgers are alive. You're on to districts. You beat Denison 2-1. Dave, do you remember anything at all about that victory over Denison 2-1?
I just remember it coming down to the end of the game and defense playing a big part of it.
Well, you win another 1-run game, and then you qualify for state. Bruce, do you remember anything about that 4-0 victory over Westwood Sloan that qualifies Fort Dodge for the state tournament?
What I remember was our pitching. And I don't know if Tim and Tom both pitched in that game or what, but I remember they just shut them down. You know, and we scratched out a few runs, 4 runs, I guess, but our pitching just shut them down. Our defense shut them down, and off to state we go.
Vic, do you remember what it was like? Fort Dodge qualifies for the state tournament, so now you're getting ready to go to Ames. Do you remember the city of Fort Dodge just being a buzz, being on fire, excited for the Dodgers going to state? Do you remember that?
Yeah, I think they were. It was a pretty neat time. There's a big crowd that came down, and then the crowd got bigger every game. We saw people we didn't know were baseball fans at the game.
Yeah.
But they got behind us. It was a pretty exciting time.
All right, Dave Vaughn, you guys are going to Ames. You're going to take on Norway in the opening round. You beat them 6-2. Dave, what memories do you have of that state tournament win over Norway?
I remember every game we won, we'd always go to Coach McNeil, who's your best team now? And he'd always say 1965. We'd say, get on the bus after a win. Who's your best team now? And he'd, well, that 65 team is still pretty good. When we got Norway, and they were a powerhouse back then, even though they were a small school. They were a powerhouse. And we jumped out early and got them and took care of them. And at that time, it was one class, 8 teams in the final 8, and 3 of the 8 were from the Big 8 conference: West Waterloo, Mason City, and ourselves. So we knew we could compete with any of them.
Yeah, you guys defeat Norway 6-2. Bruce Edmundson, you move on to the semifinals. Now you're going to play Indianola. What I'm surprised as I look at your schedule and you're getting deeper and deeper in the season, you don't have to play a Des Moines team. You're playing, towns that are a little bit smaller, but here you are anyway. You're in the semifinals against Indianola. Any memories, Bruce, of beating Indianola and qualifying for the state championship game?
Yes, that Indianola game was incredible. I think we scored 6 runs in the first inning. I know I led off the game and I got on base, and then Dave, I think, hit a double. And I mean, we scored 6 or 7 runs in the first inning. And so it wasn't like the game was over, but boy, we were off to a great start. But that's what I remember. We were way ahead, and then we just finished out the game.
Yeah, you defeated Indianola 7-4 in that game. So now you're in the state championship game here, Vic Gordon. And Vic, you're getting ready to take on Cedar Rapids Kennedy. And here's a refresher for you. Here's your batting order that day. Bruce Edmundson leading off at third base. Dave Vaughn, the shortstop, batting second. Batting third, the first baseman, Steve Arnold. Catcher Vic Gordon bats cleanup. Mike Cooker's in right field hitting 5th. John Davidson's in left field hitting 6th. Dave Markey's a center fielder. He'll bat 7th. Batting 8th, the second baseman, Tony Salvatore. And on the hill, Tom Walters. When I say that batting order to you, Vic Gordon, do you get chills?
Yeah, I do. That order, maybe the top of that order would have been pretty similar during the year, but second half was very different. And one of the things that hits me as I hear that you call the order is, at the end of the season, we had the right people playing in the right spots. That was the team right there. We came ready. And one of the things I remember was Indianola did, at least to me, what Ed wanted us to do to other teams. When I watched them practice, warm up, even walk around the stadium, I thought, wow, these guys look good warming up. And so they were a good team.
Vic Gordon, you hit 2 home runs during the state tournament, and you hit a towering shot in that state championship game. I'm guessing 99% chance you remember that home run, right?
There's a couple plays I do remember. Yeah.
Dave Vaughn, here's how the game went. You guys scored 1 in the first. Cedar Rapids Kennedy scored 1 in the bottom of the second. You're tied at 1 after 2 innings. You get 2 runs in the third. Maybe it was that homer by Vic. I think that's the 3rd inning home run he hit. So you're up 3-1 after 3 innings. You tack on 2 more in the 4th. You're up 5-1. Kennedy scores a run in the bottom of the 4th. It's now 5-2. You get a run in the 6th. So now the score is 6-2. They get 2 in the 5th. It's 6-4. You get 2 more in the 6th inning. And there's your 8 runs. You held them the remainder of the way. 8 runs, 9 hits, no errors for the Dodgers. Cedar Rapids Kennedy, 4 runs, 9 hits, no errors. Tom Walters goes the distance. And here's the funny thing for me when we talk about the difference in the game today. We talk about pitch count and all this kind of stuff that goes on in baseball. Walters, 7 innings, gave up 4 runs, 9 hits, walked 5, struck out 11. If you're going to strike out 11 batters, you're throwing probably 4 to 5 pitches per at bat. If you're going to walk 5 batters, you're throwing probably 20 pitches to those batters. You're giving up 9 hits. I would guess, Dave Vaughn, that Walters probably threw, 115 to 125 pitches in that game. Would that sound maybe right to you?
I would say that's probably pretty accurate. Yes.
Dave, what do you remember about that championship win as I kind of rehash that for you?
I remember the first inning, Eddie got on base, and we were not much for emotions. I hit a double and scored him, and we were sort of doing the fist bumps, and you just never did that with Ed. You were supposed to be calm and like you've been there before, but it was a big moment, so we were pumped up for the time.
It's funny, I was talking to the 1989 group a couple of weeks ago, and I asked Rick Peterson, after the Dodgers won their semifinal, they're going to the championship game. I asked him, was it like there was a mob scene on the field? What was the celebration like? And he goes, there wasn't. Ed McNeil wouldn't allow it. But anyways, that box score, Bruce Edmundson goes 1 for 3, scores 3 runs. Dave Vaughn, 2 for 5, 3 ribbies. Steve Arnold is 2 for 2, scores 2 runs, drives in a run. Vic Gordon that day, you were 2 for 3, scored a run, 2 RBIs, you had the home run. Mike Cooker, 0 for 4. John Davidson, 0 for 3. Dave Markley was 1 for 2. Tony Salvatore, 1 for 2. Tom Walters, 0 for 3. Bruce Edmundson, what memories do you have of that championship win?
I remember when we got there and we were warming up. And to me, it's like, and I think to all the rest of our team here, it's like we were supposed to be there. It wasn't like we were nervous or we were afraid, or it's like we were supposed to be here. And I remember the other team was like the number 1 seed, I think, or they had been ranked number 1 in the state all season. So I remember they were real cocky towards us and kind of making comments and stuff as we were warming up. And if I could just tell a real quick story, we took infield. And a lot of times we'd take infield and it wouldn't go very well. And Coach McNeil would get kind of frustrated with us. Sometimes he'd just call us in and say, my God, this is embarrassing. But in the championship game, I remember I was over on third base. The other team's dugout was right next to me. And they were kind of yelling and razzing and, we're number 1. We're going to beat you guys. But we took infield, and it was like a perfect infield. I mean, I just remember it was no ball was bobbled. Every throw was perfect. Everything was perfect all the way around. Then the other dugout got real quiet. I just remember that. It was like we were supposed to be there.
A couple of things I remember. These guys especially have talked about how strong the Dodgers were on defense. And I think defense was one of the things where we excelled. Dave Markley, the senior, he struggled, especially towards the end of the year. He was in a hitting slump, struggled hitting, but he was a center fielder who was an outstanding center fielder. We had somebody good at every position. The person playing knew their defense. Yeah. And for me, Ed McNeil had taught me in blocking the plate, he taught me that if they're coming down trying to run you over, he said, just slip down towards third base with them a little bit and just stand there. And when they come, stick your glove out and hit him in the stomach and let him go by you. And this big pitcher who could also hit of Kennedy, he was about 6'5", 260, I think. He
Yeah.
came barreling down the line to score, and I get the ball early enough that I'm able to catch it. And Ed had taught me this move for years, but I'd never had the occasion to use it. But here he was. Ed had taught me, and I caught the ball. I slammed him in the stomach, moved aside. He went flailing totally out. I love that.
All right.
And another key thing we had was Steve Arnold was at first base, and one of their guys was taking too much liberty at first base. So we had this play that we executed quite a few times during the season. I'm just sitting back there on my haunches. I just pick up some dirt and throw it. And he puts his hand to his ear, and I call a pitch out, and the pitcher throws it outside, and bang, we picked a guy off first in the game.
Yeah.
And those two things were pretty meaningful to me, that on our defense, we could hold them pretty good.
Again, I've got All-State catcher Vic Gordon, fourth-team All-State selection, third baseman Bruce Edmundson, shortstop Dave Vaughn from the 1969 Fort Dodge Dodgers baseball team. Dave Vaughn, you're standing out at shortstop. Do you remember the final out the Dodgers got that won the state championship?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure Tom struck the kid out to end the game. But two things I wanted to mention here, and Vic touched on one. Dave Markley was supposed to go into the Navy. He had enlisted in the Navy.
Yeah.
And we weren't sure we were going to have him when we got to the tournament run because he was supposed to report. And so he had to get extensions so he could keep playing and report late to the Navy. Then also Steve Arnold he's about 5'7". Andy Wiles, he used to come in late for defensive purposes because he was 6'5". As a first baseman. That was big in a couple of those one-run games in sectionals and districts, having him at first base. So those were a couple of key things that really stuck out.
Bruce Edmundson, do you remember how your pitchers were used? Did you have like three pitchers you rotated? I mean, because, again, I just mentioned Tom Walters threw all 7 innings during that championship game, threw a lot of pitches based on what the stats would say. Was there 3 or 4 pitchers you rotated? How did that work back in 1969?
What I remember, Tom Walters and Tim Sweeney were our 2 starters. And then Sam Bucci was like our first guy coming out of the bullpen. If I remember right, Tom Walters and Tim Sweeney, they did most of the pitching. And Sam would come in, for relief. But beyond that, I don't remember anybody else.
As a catcher of the team, I remember 2 people pitching, Walters and Sweeney. That's it. I don't remember anybody throwing it. But Bucci pitched a little bit, I think. I'm pretty sure. And the only other guy that would have pitched on that roster would be Jim Porter might have pitched a little bit.
Yeah.
Vic, what a team. 23-6. State champions, 1969. Who would have seen that coming? Again, I go back a few games. You guys beat Norway 6-2, Indianola 7-4. You beat Cedar Rapids Jefferson 8-4. You scored 6, 7, and 8 runs in the state tournament. Reminder, you beat Fonda by scoring a run in the 7th to 4th extra innings. Then you had a 2-1 victory over Denison. Some people could argue we're so close from not even being in the state tournament, Vic.
Yeah. That's what the tournament is. It used to be in Iowa all the time when you got every team from every class, every team is in it, and it's a single elimination tournament. It's dicey every ball game. And I think by the time we got close to getting to the state tournament, I think we developed an attitude that we can beat anybody. And when we played Kennedy for the championship, we were not in the least intimidated by them.
No.
We were ready to go. And another thing that was really important about this team, Sam Bucci was one, Andy Wiles was one, Brian Spohr, Dave Tuttle. We had a group of seniors who never played, but they had great attitudes. They were tremendous supporters of the team and every player. The seniors who didn't play are one of the real keys to this team as well, I think.
I remember when we went out on the field for that 7th inning, and it was like, we get 3 outs here, and we're the state champions. It was like we got one, and then we got the next one. And I just remember when we got that final out, it was like kind of like the most amazing feeling I think I've ever felt, just for a few seconds. I told Dave and Vic this earlier, but, I ran into the pitcher's mound after we won, and Vic was there, and but somehow I got onto the bottom of the pile. And I was really getting crushed down there. Like, it was like, wow. But, then I got out and everything was good. But whenever I watch somebody win the World Series or something, if there's a pile, I'm thinking, don't get stuck on the bottom because, man. But anyway, the bus ride home, I remember the first thing, like Dave said, we asked Coach McNeil when he came on the bus, who's your best team now? And But the bus ride home was like just a big celebration. And then we went down the drag, and that was like so cool for us. It was like, and in that championship game, I felt like the whole crowd at the stadium was for us. It's like the whole town of Fort Dodge showed up. And it was just the most wonderful feeling. And then to have us win, wow.
Dave Vaughn, just your final memories here of that 1969 team, 23-6 state champions.
We just had a real cohesive group that worked our tails off and did what was asked of us. And everybody did the little details that made us winners. So we were practiced every day expecting that, and it happened.
Vic Gordon, final thoughts on that 1969 championship team?
We talked about the great qualities of Coach McNeil. I think that team panned out to be his best team in the sense that we did what he wanted his team to do more than any team he's ever had. I think we became an Ed McNeil's team, not necessarily because we were so good, but because we really worked hard and we really followed baseball as McNeil understood baseball.
Bruce Edmundson, your final thoughts on that 1969 team?
Well, it was just like a dream come true. We get in the tournament and we just win every game. And before long, we're playing in the championship game. And my God, we're playing this amazing team and we're beating them soundly. And it's just the chemistry that I think we all had as players. And of course, I give all glory to God. But Coach McNeil was, I think, it was because of him. Yeah. And his assistant, Marty Patterson, he was just a great guy. I think he was a good Christian guy, too. But I give most of the credit to Coach McNeil because he just brought us along and he kept teaching us and he wouldn't put up with any junk. And by golly, we won the whole thing.
The Fort Dodge Dodgers, state champions, 1969, 23-6 is their final record. They beat Norway 6-2, Indianola 7-4, Cedar Rapids Jefferson 8-4. Guys, it's been a lot of fun to talk to you. Dave Vaughn, thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Bruce Edmundson, I appreciate you being on.
Yes, sir. Thank you for having me.
Vic Gordon, it's been a fun conversation.
Thanks so much.